Welcome to the 10th episode of 13 Ways to Lead with your host, the 13th Command Chief of the Air National Guard, Chief Master Sgt. Maurice Williams. Our featured guest today is Staff Sgt. Devon Duquette, an aircrew flight equipment airman from the 158th Fighter Wing in Vermont. I'm Master Sergeant Eric Gallion, and today's episode is about leading through rewards and praise. Praise in public, reprimand in private. Recognize troops for their hard effort and quality work. Never get too busy to say good job or thank you. Here's your host, Chief Williams.
Hey, well, once again, I'd like to invite all the listeners to the episode of 13 Ways to Lead. We have a special guest here coming from the state of Vermont, Staff Sgt. Duquette. Give us a little background on you and your career and kind of where you are right now.
Thank you, Chief. And first off, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, for allowing me to come down and spend this time with you and chat about our career and how we lead through rewards and praise. I am married and have 3 kids. Since I'm a drill status guardsman and aircrew flight equipment, I also work a couple other careers on the outside of the military, and my full-time job is being a butcher for a butcher shop down in a small farm town in Vermont. And I also work and volunteer on the fire department for my town, and I also clean and detail automotive vehicles.
Okay, well, you got a lot of different things that you do, and that's the difference in being an Air National Guard. We have a lot of different skill sets and things that we do outside of the military, and it brings a lot of variety and diversity within our organization. One of the things, you mentioned, hey, you had 3 kids. We're going to talk about a little bit about reward and praise, but as I think about reward and praise, you have to do that not just within a work center, but with people, because it's people business. And I want you to think about it a little bit and give me and elaborate on giving reward and praise to your kids. Have you had an example you can expand on and talk about?
Yes, most definitely. So I have to look at rewards and praise every single day with my children. Because just like the military, anywhere that you go and anybody you work with, they are motivated by certain things, and we can look at those things that they are motivated by and use them to reward them or praise them. So like an example with my children, my son, he absolutely loves Dum Dum Lollipops.
Okay, the Dum Dum Lollipops.
And he does not like picking up after himself, as any 3-year-old doesn't like to do. So one of the things that I do with him is we go from room to room with each mess that he makes, and I say, if you can get this done in this amount of time, you're going to get rewarded at the end. And I show him the Dum Dum Lollipop, and it encourages him to get it done as fast as he can.
Right. And see, it seemed very simple, but that's how we got to do with people within our organization. You're learning a technique and skill, and you hit one important thing is it's different for each kid. And just like in a work center, hey, and just like on my team, it's different for each person. A lot of times people always think that it's money that inspires people and motivates, but it's not. If that would be the case, we wouldn't have no problem in recruiting people into the Air National Guard, our Air Force, if it's always just money, throwing money. But that's not. We got to see what motivates us. You hit it on the point. What motivates and inspires people. That unique thing, sometimes it's time off. Sometimes it's award. Sometimes it's a pat on the back. We got to recognize what that connection is that when it comes to reward and praise. I always talk sometime when I'm speaking to people and explaining the why and what they do, because when you understand the why, you have a greater impact on your purpose in anything that you're doing. So I like to explain that to them in their job. So I'll open up to you in your job in aircrew field equipment and what you do in your job. Would you be able to elaborate on how your job fit into the mission up there at the 158 with the new F-35s up there?
Yeah, so since the transition of the F-35s coming to the Vermont Air National Guard, I just recently swapped into aircrew flight equipment within the last couple months. So being a drill status guardsman, I've gotten to see how they operate on a very small scale so far.
Right.
But it's allowed me the opportunity to see how we contribute. Coming from a different shop, we all have our portion of the why as to the overall mission. Since I've joined AFE, it has been great insight to me, not only through connections that I've built working with leaders, but also seeing that without the job of inspecting their flight gear and getting them out to the aircraft, that mission's never going to take off. And one of the great things that I've seen through my time in the military is through those connections that we build, we can look at the why as to everybody, and everybody's gone a different direction as to why they're there. The biggest thing that I see with recruiting even is we're so focused on pushing free education, tuition, and all the benefits. We need to be reaching out to certain individuals and seeing what the people that are interested in the military specifically, seeing what they're interested in and what draws them to the military, because we all have different aspects as to why we wanted to join or why we want to join. So we need to incorporate that into what we do. Right.
Well, sound like I'm ready to switch you over to another AFSC before we get out of here and make you AR a recruiter and put you out there. But that's a great elaboration on that. What do you think motivates and inspire you through reward or praise?
I'm the type of person that doesn't necessarily need the public recognition to be rewarded or praised. I am a very go-getter type of person, so I volunteer, and this is how I get rewarded. I'm the type of individual that likes to continually learn and strive for greater things, and that's through volunteering for different things around the base or opportunities. 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to become the president of the Rising Six Council, which was formerly known as the Junior Enlisted Council on the Vermont Air National Guard base. And we did a lot of things as a group that got rewarded and praised from around the wing. Never once would I take any of that to being credited to myself, because there's such a big team of individuals that make all of those steps happen. The part that I got the most rewards and praise from was seeing that all of these people and the thoughts and ideas that we had contributed to the overall mission and success of the wing. So that therefore just made me feel a lot better about where I was at in the wing.
Right. Well, that's great. One of the things you mentioned, is out public, and sometime I tell chiefs, because I've had some experiences throughout my career where chiefs or senior NCOs, they're getting ready to retire, and they say, well, I don't want a ceremony. And I always tell them, it's not about you, it's about the other people. Seeing that we recognize you for your service and show the appreciation to it. As I walk through the Pentagon sometime and I see individuals in their service uniform or service dress uniform, I look on those, I look at their ribbons, I can tell the difference between our Reg Af brothers and Guard and Reserve based on ribbons, because we take our job as just doing a job and not rewarding people with rewards to give them recognition for the work that they have did. But of course, with the Reg Av, hey, when you leave a new assignment, it gets documented and they put in rewards. We don't do that as much. And so I look at the individuals they're walking down through, that's a reflection of your career. It's a small reflection, but it's a reflection of your career, because it shows the things that you accomplished, some of the things that you've done, the places that you've been. And, that's all a part of that, as we say, hey, yeah, we pat people on the back for the job they're doing. We tell them thank you. But we also need to do it formally, too, as a sense that big crowds can see that we recognize and we thank people for their service and how they're doing. That's one of the biggest challenges I think we have. It's a culture change that we need to change within our Air National Guard. And it's a little bit at a time. So I always look at individuals, hey, your awards should reflect your rank and your scope of responsibility that you are at that time.
Sergeant Duquette, you kind of mentioned in a roundabout way, basically knowing your audience, knowing how to praise people in the way that they want to be praised. So not everybody wants a public display, but if you take them out back and say, listen, I really appreciate what you did back there. Not a lot of people want to be thrusted in the limelight, but I want you to know that, not only are you doing a job well done, but you're inspiring younger airmen to behave the same way.
Definitely knowing where they come from as far as receiving awards and praise is the best step in order to make them feel most comfortable and appreciative of receiving that reward. But you also got to let them know is that other people are looking at them, and you're basically in a leadership role where they're looking up to you. So we need to look at that and explain to them that, there's times that we can pat you on the back and say thank you, but there's also going to be times where we're going to have to call everybody in for a commander's call and give you a handshake and congratulate you in front of everybody and explain what you did so that the other airmen can see, what you did exactly and why you're being rewarded for it, so then it can encourage them to do and take the same steps as you did.
Looking at your background, you've been over the Rising Six. Hey, you've been on the Honor Guard. You do a lot of things outside of your AFSC, and you make the connection with a lot of different people. So in that environment, hey, you set the example on what achieving looks like based on the position that you've been in, and I'm sure you've been rewarded, publicly too, out among people. And that's one of the reasons why you're here. I met you doing the Rising Six up there in Vermont doing lunch, and we was across the table, and I said, hey, that's my man right there. Every time I call us up, you was a guy. Hey, you was over the Honor Guard. You was over the Rising Six. So and now you're here today. So that's great things to accomplishment. Within this leadership principle, I say reprimand in private. One of the things I always give an example of, and I want you to think about it even when you're dealing with your kids. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to expand upon this. One of the things I always tell leaders is, hey, if you're going to go in and reprimand somebody, when you get in there, always tell them what they're doing good. Then talk to them about the issue and get them to come together with some ideas on how we're going to address it. And then last, hey, you go back and reiterate on the things that they're doing good. So, hey, smile on them when they come in. Tell them to help you out on how they're going to fix it, and then smile at them to go in the door. Because that first appearance is good, and the last appearance is good. So that's how I kind of always provide that insight to individuals. When they're talking about counseling, we'll say reprimand. Are you supervising anyone in AFE yet?
I am not supervising anybody within the AFE shop, so that part's a little different for me.
Well, you're learning now with your kids, so go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't mind correcting people if I need to, but I'm at work from 6 o'clock in the morning till oftentimes 6 o'clock plus at night. So I get the text messages or phone calls from my wife explaining that, either my son or my daughter did something bad and that I got to address it when I get home. So, I try to keep a cool head while I'm at work and try to come up with the plan of what I'm going to do and how to address it when I get home. One of the things that I've learned listening to other podcasts is raising children. It's one of the hardest jobs that you can do.
Definitely, yes.
And, when it comes down to addressing problems and concerns that they have, it can be even harder because we're just going based off the experiences that we've had and learned from. So one of the things that I've incorporated with my children and still always learning to try to incorporate better of is when my kids do something bad, instead of going into it just yelling at them and telling them what they did wrong, like you said, you got to tell them something that they did good and then tell them what's wrong and how we're going to correct it and then tell them something good again.
Right. So that's perfect right there. You just remember all that when you start leading those airmen in your section, because it's people are people, and we need to take the approach. But it's always, to me, about explaining why we need to do certain things to expand upon it. People get that understanding. Earlier we talked about the why, and I think also when it comes to reward and praise that inspire people to do things is they understand how they fit into the big picture. I always give the example of how the military in our nation, we look at what we call the national defense strategy and the objectives of the national defense strategy. And it's, the number one thing is secure the homeland. And how we do that in our organization is, we be the best at our jobs that we can be. And I think if we explain that to people and how proficient they are at their job, that's rewarding to them in knowing how they fit into that big picture. Even at your within your civilian job as a butcher, in what you do, we talked earlier in that you said, hey, it's just not like walking in the store and get some meat. So in that big picture aspect of your job, what do you need to know as a butcher when you're dealing with meat?
Yeah, so there's a lot of aspects that goes into being a butcher. It's not as easy as going into the store and choosing the cut of meat that you want for dinner that night. You got to look where the product's actually coming from, the farmers themselves, get their story. Every animal's fed differently, so if you're more of an organic type of person, you got to be looking at the feed of that animal. But when they come into the shop, just the process of actually humanely taking the life of the animal and then processing them to the point where it's being cut up to the cuts that somebody wants, and then directly shipping it to the customer. There's a lot of steps involved, and it correlates to any job that you work, that it's not just a one and done type of deal or a one person runs the show. There's a whole bunch of different aspects of the team that get the job accomplished and the mission succeeded.
Hey, so now in doing that with your job, what is rewarding to you? Is it the customers coming back saying how the meat was cut, what type of meat? What gives you that feeling as being a butcher? Since you elaborated on all the details of it, elaborate on what gives you that rewarding feeling.
Yeah, so the part that gives me the most reward, well, there's really two. I'm always continuing to try to learn and grow personally so that I can overall be a better person and then leave this world saying that I've done the most that I can and helped the most people that I can. But the biggest thing to me working at the butcher shop is the connections I make with people. I'm all about networking and communicating with people and just hearing people's background and trying to influence it in any positive way I can, or even getting more opportunities to expand my knowledge. So I would say the connections and talking with the people is the best part to me.
Okay, so the feedback from the individuals, just talking to them, as you're dealing with the customers based on just being there in that environment.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, now we know what motivate and inspire you, so we just got to keep a good group of people around you, that team in AFE, and we get the best product out of you.
So far, so good.
You sound like a people person.
I am very much a people person. I love talking. If you talk to a lot of people that I know, I probably don't stop talking.
That's good. It makes for good entertainment. Good
Definitely.
info. Wanted to talk about overpraising and rewarding. Now, you have kids, so does that ever come across your mind as far as, well, I don't want to do this too much because otherwise they become the next trophy generation, as they like to call millennials, even though we only received them. We didn't come up with the idea.
Yeah, so there's actually, I guess, two examples that I have of this. One is with my children. Like I said, my son loves Dum Dum lollipops, and we oftentimes catch ourselves rewarding him often with Dum Dums because they're so small that, it becomes a thing for him to continuously want them, which I'm not saying wanting to receive rewards and praise is bad, but there's a point where if you over reward them, they're not going to take that reward and that praise as serious or look at it the same as if it's a once in a while kind of thing. And then like you said before about, the millennial kind of thing, just my time and being in the military, we all make our opinions and whatnot of other airmen, and coming from a small shop that I was in before, receiving rewards in the military is slim to none, especially in the Air National Guard. Nobody wants to write and make awards and submit you for them, so they're rare. And then you see once in a while you get this airman from another shop or another area that's like Chief said, he's got a ribbon rack that hangs down to his knees. It's one of those things where you're like, do I want to be like that person? I want ribbons, but at the same time, I don't want to be the only person that's receiving the awards, because it's just making you look.
You afraid of the
way.
disdain or the rivalry amongst your coworkers if you get put in the spotlight?
Definitely.
Something like that?
Yeah, I think if people aren't equally getting rewarded for jobs and tasks, that they're going to build a persona against you that you might not want. And that's, I guess, where we need to come up as future leaders or leaders now into equaling rewards and praise throughout our wing.
That's right. We own that piece, and we can change. That's what I meant to say. It's a cultural thing we got to change. And, I mean, you hit it on the head, but we got to do it ourselves. We got to start changing the culture. That's why it's one of these leadership principles I came up with, 13 Ways to Lead, because it's something we got to change within our organization.
Most definitely. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I've seen, especially being the president of the Rising Six Council. One of the biggest aspects that we looked at while we were working through all of our missions there was the Awards and Recognitions Committee. And that's one of the biggest things that we lack within our unit, I believe, is recognizing and awarding people for the work that they do. And I believe that is why it's leading to retention issues within not only the wing but the Air Force in general. Is when you go to work, you want to be rewarded for the work you do and not just being worked and abused. I personally think the solution to it not only is changing the mindset of the airmen and the leadership team to focus on the steps of rewarding people, but I also think it comes down to training. I would submit anybody that I know that does a good job for something in for a reward, but I don't know the step in order to do it properly. So I think that's what we need to focus on, is doing a training and simplifying the process to submit people for the good things they do.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. That takes me back when I was a E6 and we'd come back from deployment, and I was supervising. I was over the section. My background is transportation, and so I had all my individuals within my shop come in, stand behind me. I took my time prior to and went into Air Force Portal and wrote a step-by-step process on how to submit awards. And I had all of them watch me submit an award, and then gave them a copy of the Word doc, and they had to go evaluate the awards that those airmen that they was leading and submit awards. So when that changed and we started submitting awards, and we changed the whole culture and how we submit awards. But it took down to that training that you mentioned, but it was step by step. I learned it myself, created a Word doc so they can go step by step, and then they went out to go find and see where their people was on awards, and we started submitting awards. And like I say, it wasn't just everyone got an award. Hey, it was evaluated who had been on deployment, who hadn't had an award a while, and that's how we changed the organization. But
yeah, and I think one of the other big aspects to it too is look at when they achieve something good, reward them at that time.
That's right.
And not years down the road. Like an example of this is I just finished my 6-year first contract with the Air Force, and I was considering getting out of the military. And when it got down to my leadership that I was considering getting out, Airman of the Quarter Award came up from year plus ago, and they rewarded it to me. So it's like, all right, well, I received the award late.
Right.
Is this like you're doing good, we want you to stay, or not? So I think one of the biggest things is trying to reward them when they know that they did good and right on the time.
That's right. Reward and appropriate. Hey, I'm sure you can think about times with your kids. You got to praise them at that time when they do something good, not wait till they have forgot about what happened.
Yeah.
If you wait till late on that time, it's the same thing about reprimanding too. Reprimand at that time, not 2 or 3 weeks later, because people have lost the thought about what even happened.
What you did 3 weeks ago.
I can't remember what I did yesterday.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's great. I would be looking forward to seeing you and hearing in the future on how, once you progress in being a supervisor, hey, based on your civilian job and how you make that connection with people, hey, based on your interaction with your kids and how, you understand that reward and praise and also reprimanding piece, that how you administrate that, I think that's a great thing for you to grow into that supervisor position.
Well, thanks, Chief. And thanks, Sergeant Duquette, for taking the time to speak to us about leading through praise and reward. Be sure to follow the Air National Guard on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for more of Team 13, follow the Director of the Air National Guard on Facebook. Join us again next month on 13 Ways to Lead, where we will be talking about leading by being optimistic. From all of us here at the Air National Guard Podcast Network, have a great Air National Guard Day. Team 13, out. 13 Ways to Lead is produced by Major Amber Schatz. Our editor and sound mixer is Master Sergeant Brandy Fowler. This episode was recorded at the Secretary of the Air Force Public Affairs Studio in the Pentagon.